Instead of making the ship faster, how about installing some seatbelts?
Seatbelts are dead weight. I feel the need for speed.
Yes, but I feel the nafety for safety.
Oh, fuff.
Okay, next on our list of things to do is to kind of deal with the backup camera that's going to replace the rear view mirror. What we're going to do is right up above the camera, or up above the mirror rather, you see there's a little hole there. We need to run the wiring for the camera down through that wire. We're also going to do a direct mount configuration of the mirror itself. Now, the kit allows for it to just be strapped onto the back of the factory mirror, a couple of rubber straps and all good. And if you had a reason to want to be able to take the camera out of the vehicle, or if you just didn't want to deal with removing your factory mirror, that's fine. But in our case, we're going to do a direct mount kit, and so it's going to mount where the factory mirror mounts to the glass. So we're going to start by removing the factory mirror. Now that is held in place just by a little bit of a friction fit on this connector here at the bottom. This is a T20 in this case. Just back the screw out, which will release the clamp, and then the mirror slides off. It leaves that little mounting fixture on the glass. So that's what we'll use to attach the new mirror when this is done. Now, in order to gain access to the space up here where we want to run our wiring, we're going to need to go ahead and pull this trim panel off. This trim panel is kind of held in place by the sun visors. So we're going to go ahead and take the Phillips screw that holds the sun visor in, just take those out on both sides, and then the remaining trim just pops off the dash. You can actually kind of see right here, we've already got some wires for the CB that are running through the same space. So we're just going to do more of that, of what we've done before, to mount the camera wires for the backup camera. So that comes out. You see that pulls down. And this just unsnaps. And honestly, that's probably enough for what we need to do. And then we'll run the wire through here and bring it down the A-pillar, just like our wires here, and into the dash. So what we're going to do is run the wiring for the hardwire kit from behind the dash up through that hole there, alongside our wiring and cable for the CB, up to the top here, across, and bring it out down there. And this is one of these where there's lots of space back in here behind the dash to work your fingers around to fish everything through. Just take the trim screws out, the 3 screws that hold the trim here to the windshield frame. Take those out, pop the trim loose. Ordinarily you just take it out. With the roll cage on this one, it's a little bit more difficult. And then fish the wires where you need them to go. So the ends of these are a little awkward to get through. They tend to want to hang up on things. Once you get them pushed through that corner of the dash, you can just run them up and over. Get enough wire that you can bring them out through that hole right there, just above the mirror. So the backup camera arrangement also has a GPS antenna as part of it that is an adhesive backed item. Now this needs to be sitting up high on the vehicle where it'll have a clear view of the sky, no metal in the way. On this vehicle we run a soft top exclusively, and we have this panel here that's attached to the top of the roll bar. So what we're going to do is we're just adhesive attach that there, then we'll run the wire down to the antenna via the same path as the CB wiring here is taking, and it'll come down and come out the bottom with the other two wires. We may do something very similar with the satellite radio antenna, because it has a similar need to be up high and away. It is a magnetic mount rather than the adhesive, so we'll either end up stick it here next to the GPS antenna, or we may let it just ride on top of the roll bar here at a similar location. The idea is get these up high where they've got a clear view of the sky and clear vision, clear signal. And so with the GPS antenna, the camera, and the USB-C power connector all tucked up underneath the windshield trim here, we'll go ahead and put the visors back in, put the trim screws back in along the door panel, and this part will be buttoned back up. Now with the trim on the windshield put back together, GPS antenna mounted, the wiring for the camera or the mirror all routed up, everything tucked up nice and neat and through, we now have these two wires coming out of our dash. This one with the box on it, this is the power supply for the camera. It comes over to these three wires that are going to tie into our stereo harness in our case. They do provide fuse taps for you as well if you're wanting to do that. We could mount this to the interior fuse box, do fuse taps to drive these, but since we're already working with the stereo wiring, we'll go ahead and connect to the stereo wiring. The other here, this is our cable for the backup camera itself, for the reverse camera. This is a nice long wire, since this is intended to go all the way to the back side of the Jeep. On this particular Jeep, we're going to need to run that down, run it along the factory harness that runs right here, comes up, comes to the back side. I think we're going to try to run this with like the factory wiring. So it's going to come to the back, come down, run across the back, come up on this side, come back out through the hole here, and then we'll come right alongside all of this wiring that's going to the tailgate to ultimately try to mount the camera back here with the license plate. We'll have to see how we're doing for length. They do sell an extension cable if this is not long enough. So the other one, yeah, we just need to fish this through the dash and over here to our cavity where the stereo is going to be at. Installing the hard mount kit or direct mount kit for the Wolfbox backup slash dash cam mirror. The idea is to allow this to be directly mounted, eliminating the factory mirror rather than the piggyback on top of the other. So the way this works, you've got a plate with some longer screws that goes into the mirror to replace the straps that were here. And this is a relatively straightforward process. Of pulling out the 4 screws that are behind the little rubber pads, removing the retainers for the elastic straps, and then attaching the plate to the back of the mirror in its place.
Looks like a precision screwdriver set is needed for this.
Probably will make things easier because these are just all a bunch of very small screws. The instructions do warn that there's a possibility that the screws they provide may be too long, and they recommend using the washers included in the package, if that's the case, to take up the extra space. It is looking like we do have some extra space here. At least the screws do kind of feel like they're bottoming out before I'm getting to a point of the plate really being tight. So yeah, that's got a little bit of slop to it. So I'm going to come back. I think I've got eight washers. Yeah, I've got 8 washers. So I'm going to go ahead and put 2 washers behind each of these screws to try to take up some of the slack. The other option they suggest is to use the factory screws, which are, in this case, way too short to be viable. This particular direct mount kit is from a third party, not from Wolfbox themselves. Wolfbox does make direct mount kits of their own. In our case, the Wolfbox part was not readily available in stock, and we opted for the third party. All 4 screws attached. The plate is now firmly attached to the back of the mirror. The second half of the kit is the mirror mount itself. And this is just a standard mount that will hook over the top of the piece on the dash of the windshield on the vehicle. If you've got a non-standard connector on the windshield side, they are adapters. And then this simply screws on to the plate. So, 4 more screws to finish attaching the mount to the back of the mirror. Definitely a precision screwdriver set will make this process a whole lot less inconvenient. And it'll be a Phillips screwdriver for that. And that is ready to be attached to the windshield of the vehicle. We've already installed in the vehicle our hardwire kit that provides this USB 3 power connection, the interface that goes off to the backup camera, and the interface that goes to the GPS. Now, some of that is that this is providing functionality that is significantly more than just a rear view mirror, because it is something that will have an ongoing recording loop, as well as GPS location, and has some other sensors in there around things like, vehicle motion, vehicle movement. This is now ready to be installed. Finishing up the install of the dash cam rearview mirror unit, we pre-ran all of our wiring. So we have the USB-C connector, the GPS connector, and our camera connector up here. Now we do have a little bit of electrical tape here that was used for routing, and we will most likely need to remove this. Okay. So now, the way this works, we have the USB-C plugs into the top of the mirror. Those all just plug in. I may find that I had wished I had given myself just a little bit more length here to this USB-C connector. Then, once it's all situated, there is just a Phillips screw to tighten down to lock it in place. Make sure all the wiring is in fact tucked up behind the trim, coming out through the little hole that is above the mirror here. And like that, it is done. We do see that the mirror has powered on because our circuit was hot.
There are some instructions, though, on here that we should keep.
And what you're seeing here is the forward-facing camera and the reflection off the windshield.
Now, this is our first time operating this, so looks like we're just kind of testing things. Well, that's because we are. Oh, cool. So, no cameras to the back yet. Those are still yet to be determined. We'll be routing those cables up and forward. Got the correct date. I don't think that's the correct time. This is gonna be cool.
It does have an on-off switch at the bottom.
Well, next up is to get the cameras in, and there's some instructions about formatting the data card in it that we also will need to follow.
With an SD slot that is located right here at the top of the camera, or top of the mirror, which again could be a little awkward to get in and out. Although, again, like every mirror, it does have some adjustability up and down, as well as for angle of driver. What will be sort of different with this one is because this is in fact a video display, not a mirror. Rotating the mirror side to side or up and down is not going to change
Nothing.
the field of view.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be pointed in a certain direction. So Kenneth is out back. He already ran the wires, and now he's showing me what the camera looks like. That is pretty nice. That's switching oh, there we go. That's what I wanted. So that is a split screen. You can see the back camera. Kenneth, wave at the camera. Yep. And then the front camera, which is showing, of course, the reflection off the hood, like we were saying earlier, because the hood is up on Penny. So that is the split screen camera. So I can switch between front, rear, and the split screen of both front and rear.
Finishing up the install for the rear view mirror, rear view camera on this one. We ended up getting a different bracket for the camera. This is the camera that came with the Wolfbox rear view mirror, but they sell an auxiliary bracket that is actually intended to go behind the license plate, so it'd be a little bit more attractive, a little bit more hidden normally. In this case, mounting it on this side of the license plate allowed us to get the camera just a little bit lower, which gave us a little bit more clearance for our lighting, our light here that's just above the camera for the license plate. This actually works out really well though, because in the low position, that's a nice low angle to the back side. Expect we'll have a nice, good view of the bumper in the camera angle. And then, at the other extreme, not only can we come to a point where we're looking straight back, we're actually looking a little bit up at that point. So I think, for the using this as a rear view mirror, a position, something like that, is probably going to be about what we want to give us the best field of view of the vehicles behind us.
So, let's show them the difference.
Okay.
Oh, well, hey, it's actually showing upside down. That's an easy fix. So we have to stop recording in order for that to work. Then go into here and scroll down on the display to upside down. Oh, it scrolled past it. Upside down of rear image. There it is. We're going to turn that off, and then we're going to go back, and you'll see it's right side up to the back of the shop now. Okay,
Now
hi Flashy.
Now switch it so that it's the full, just the rear camera.
Stop. That is. Nope, that's not that button. That's this button. There we go.
Okay.
Got it.
So, pointing the camera at its lowest position. Gives you a view.
Yeah, I can see something red on the ground. I see you got a tape measure there.
So, I'm going to walk forward. You tell me when my toes are at the beginning of your field of view.
Stop. It's actually your ankles, so back up half a step.
Okay.
A little bit more. tiny bit more. There you go.
Okay, the front of the toe of my boot is 52 inches behind the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at this point you're able to see a spot that is about 4 feet behind you.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's all the way down.
That's all the way down. That's the closest
Okay.
that you can see. So you don't see flash right now.
I see the top of her hip. And now I see her shoulder.
Okay. So that on the ground, 52 inches. Now, if I am standing back here, at what point do you not see me anymore?
That was why you were talking. Kind of just a little bit behind the gas cans. There. I see your feet now. And I see the bottom part of your pant leg.
Okay, so you can see my feet now. This is a point that is 12 feet. My ankle is 12 feet. My toe is now 12 feet behind the Jeep.
12 feet behind the Jeep. Okay.
Okay? So if it's further than that, you can't see it anymore. And the vehicle is more than 12 feet behind you. You probably would still like to see them.
Right.
Because you can't see me at all now.
I agree.
Okay. My guess is that as a rear view mirror, you probably want vision that is more like that.
Okay.
So I am currently standing 4 feet behind the Jeep.
I see your chest.
And you see my chest, but you can't see my feet, which
Correct.
is fine. I am 12 feet behind the Jeep,
12
which
feet.
is, in traffic, as close as you would ever want a vehicle to be.
Mm-hmm. And I see the bottom of your knees, top of your shins. There. Walk forward a little bit. Walk forward a step. More. More. There. That's about the bottom.
Okay. Right here is 240 inches, which would be 20 feet.
Oh, wow.
Again, in traffic, this would be a good distance for a vehicle behind you. It would be a good distance if you're passing a vehicle to be able to pull in front of them to know that they're behind you.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's going to be about 16 there. This is about a car length behind you. So again, this is about where you would want any vehicle to be if you were going to be passing them in traffic or something else.
Sounds good.
Okay? So yeah, I think if that's looking good to you, that is probably about where you want that camera pointed.
Let's keep it there until I hit the trails.
Okay.